In terms of the most worrying conflicts today on the continent, I think the one that's of major concern is in the Sahel, that is affecting Mali and the Malian crisis that started back in 2012, and we've watched how it's spread from Mali into Burkina Faso, into Niger, and now having a major impact across the Sahel region and into West Africa as well. The other region of concern is the Horn of Africa, and it's a mixture of both good news, transitions, critical transitions, and also getting certain countries out of conflict. Sort of two other places that are of key concern for us is Cameroon especially, and the Anglophone crisis there that has increasingly taken a violent turn since 2016, 2017. And then the other sort of region that we are keeping an eye on at Crisis Group is the Great Lakes region, and particularly the Democratic Republic of Congo. Being the case that there is a concern that there's a lack of international attention to some of the crises that are affecting the continent. Some of them have a high degree of attention because they're not just local, but they also have international consequences, and the Sahel is the one. From a European perspective, there's a real concern about issues around terrorism, counter-terrorism, jihadi groupings, and migration as well. And I think locked in with the Sahel, of course, is the ever expanding crisis in Libya. But it's also true that certain of the crises on the continent haven't had the degree of attention that they deserve because of the level, given the level of humanitarian crisis. So the Central African Republic is one that we've been paying attention to. And also, as you rightfully noted, Cameroon. In the last sort of 10 years or so, the pivotal international multilateral agency on the continent has been the African Union. And you know, the United Nations, one of the lessons it's very clear is that the United Nations and the European Union have had to work very closely in partnership in terms of dealing with peace and security on the continent with the African Union or with the regional, sub-regional bodies, so the Economic Community of West Africa or the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, in the Horn of Africa, East Africa as well. None of these multilateral agencies can go it alone. They need the legitimacy of the region. They need the legitimacy of the African Union. At the same time, the African Union, one of the important trends that we've noticed is that it has had to become more responsible. You know, as it's tried to become more assertive, and as it's tried to sort of insist that it be the leader in shaping some of the solutions to these conflicts, it's had to take on a more responsible role. And in every single crisis that we've seen on the continent, whether it's South Sudan, whether it's Sudan, whether it's in the DRC, whether it's in the Sahel, the constant question is, you know, it's not so much what is the African solution, but what is the capacity and what is the willingness of member states, both within their regions and within the African Union, to be able to manage and find a pathway out of the crisis. None of these multilateral agencies themselves can find a solution, that they have to work together in a very coherent manner, and that's often very difficult. And the other thing I will say is that even if it's an Africa-led process, it doesn't make it any less controversial than if it were being done by the UN or by the European Union or by any individual member states. You know, these are African countries that have clear interests, that have clear sort of desires, and they have a very clear foreign policy outlook. The solutions themselves require you to have a very nuanced understanding of the roots of the conflict as well. Armed groups are very good at exploiting disorder. They're very good at exploiting grievances, are very good at tapping into the feeling of misrepresentation, the feeling of marginalization, the feeling in which the government has not responded to their own needs, and the sense in which the government plays or misuses or abuses ethnic tensions as well. The key always will be the political will, and the key will also be how to manage the various competing interests of both key local actors, key regional actors, and the international community, and getting them to sort of walk in the right direction.